Alan Wright yawned as he stared at the blue glow of his workstation. The night shift at the Galactic Confederacy Central Archives was always quiet. Most of his co-workers avoided these hours, but Alan preferred the silence. It let him think. As a security analyst, his job was simple: run checks on the vast network of files that made up the collective knowledge of over 300 alien species. Look for unusual access patterns, report anything strange. He had done this job for 7 years now. It rarely surprised him. Tonight was different. His system pinged softly. Alan blinked, suddenly alert. The algorithm he had written last month had found something odd. He leaned forward, fingers moving across the holographic controls. "Show me what you found," he whispered to himself. The screen filled with data. A file deep in the system had been accessed exactly once per galactic cycle for the past 300 years. Each access lasted less than a second. The file sat behind security, layers that made Alan's eyes widen. He had never seen protection like this, not even on the Council's private communications, but what truly caught his attention was the file name. While every other document in the archives used standard unified script, this one used strange symbols. His translator identified as English. Alan said aloud. The word felt strange in his mouth. His translator provided more information: a dead language from a small blue planet on the outer rim. A planet that barely appeared in any Confederacy records. Alan knew he should report this. Strange files with abnormal security weren't his problem. He should send it up the chain and forget about it. That was procedure. Instead, he copied the file location to his personal device. The next night, Alan came prepared. He had spent his free hours coding a special program that might crack the first layer of security. He wasn't supposed to have such tools, but security analysts often created them for testing purposes. At least, that's what he would say if caught. "Let's see what you're hiding," he muttered as he connected his device to the main system. The program began its work, invisible to the regular monitoring systems. Alan watched the progress bar slowly fill. 20%, 40%. His heart beat faster with each increment. The system suddenly froze at 98%. Alan held his breath. Then, access granted. The first layer peeled away, revealing more security beneath. But now Alan could see basic information about the file. It was large, far larger than most text documents. And the creation date was strange. It predated the formation of the Confederacy itself. Alan worked through 3 more nights. Each night, he peeled away another layer of security. Each night, his curiosity grew stronger. This wasn't just an unusual file. It was something someone very powerful wanted to keep hidden. On the 5th night, the final layer fell away. Alan's hands trembled as he opened the file. Words appeared on his screen, words in English. His translator worked quickly, converting them to language he could understand. The first line made his blood freeze. "They must never find Earth." Alan read further, his eyes growing wider with each paragraph. This wasn't just a document, it was a warning. History. A secret that had been kept for centuries, according to the file. The official history of the Confederacy was a lie. The aliens hadn't peacefully united and then invited other species to join their enlightened society. The early Confederacy had been conquerors, moving from system to system, taking what they wanted until they found Earth. The file contained battle reports, strategies, casualties. The early Confederacy forces had expected an easy victory against the primitive humans. They had been wrong. Humanity had done what no other species had managed. They had fought back successfully. Not with superior technology, but with unpredictable tactics and a stubborn refusal to surrender. The file included video clips that made Alan's skin crawl. Humans, barely clothed in what looked like primitive protection gear, charging into battles they shouldn't have been able to win. Confederacy ships falling from the sky. A final desperate meeting where Confederacy leaders signed a treaty agreeing to 3 terms. Earth would be left alone. The location of the Sol system would be removed from all star charts. The defeat would never be spoken of again. At the end of the file was a note. updated regularly for 300 years by someone calling themselves the Keeper. The most recent entry was dated just last week. Treaty in danger. High Council. Faction has found traces of Earth in old records. Expedition planned under scientific pretense. True purpose: revenge and acquisition of human neural patterns. All who find this file and wish to preserve the balance, be warned. Alan closed the file and carefully replaced all security layers. His hands were shaking. This information changed everything he thought he knew about the Confederacy, about history, about his place in the universe. He needed help. He needed someone who understood this English language better than his translator did. Someone who could confirm what he had. Read. Alan remembered a professor from his university days. Samantha Miller. She studied dead languages, including those from isolated worlds. If anyone could make sense of this, she could. He sent her a message, careful to keep it vague. Need your expertise on an unusual language project. Highly confidential. Can we meet? Her reply came quickly. My office, tomorrow after final bells. Alan looked around the empty archive room. He had discovered something dangerous. Something that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. His life would never be the same. As he gathered his things to leave, a new thought struck him. If the humans had defeated the early Confederacy forces 300 years ago, how powerful might they be now? And what would happen if they learned their secret treaty was about to be broken? Alan shut down his workstation. Tomorrow he would begin finding out. Samantha Miller's office at the Confederacy Academy was small and crowded with objects from 100 different worlds. Old books filled the shelves. Strange writing systems covered the walls. A faint smell of dust and old paper hung in the air. Alan shifted nervously in his chair as Sam studied the small data device he had brought. He hadn't copied the actual file, that would have triggered alarms, but he had saved screenshots of key sections. This is real? Sam asked. Her voice was quiet but intense. She pushed a strand of red hair behind her ear as she leaned closer to the screen. I found it in the Central Archives, Alan said. Behind more security than I've ever seen. Sam touched the screen, enlarging a section of text. This isn't just English. This is military English from what they called the 21st century. The sentence structure, the abbreviations. She looked up at Alan, her green eyes wide. Where did you say you found this? I can't tell you exactly. But it's classified beyond anything I've seen before. Sam stood up and walked to her door. She pressed a small button beside it. A soft hum filled the room. Privacy field, she explained. No one can hear us now. She sat back down. Alan, do you understand what you found? This document contradicts everything we know about Confederacy history. Alan nodded. That's why I came to you. I needed someone who could confirm the translation. Someone I could trust. Sam turned back to the screen. According to this, Earth wasn't peacefully discovered and invited to join galactic society. They were attacked. And they won? Her voice rose in disbelief. That's what the file says. The early Confederacy forces tried to take Earth for its resources. But the humans fought back and won, even though their technology was far behind ours. Sam scrolled through more images. This treaty is fascinating. The humans didn't demand reparations or technology. They just wanted to be left alone. And for their victory to be kept secret, Alan added. But why? Sam wondered. Most species would boast about defeating a superior force. Alan pointed to another section of text. The file suggests the humans were concerned about revenge attacks. They knew they had been lucky. If the full might of the Confederacy came for them, they might not survive. So they asked for their location, to be hidden and the whole incident to be forgotten. Sam nodded slowly, a smart move. But now you say someone in the High Council wants to find Earth again? After all this time? A faction within the Council, yes. The file mentioned something about human neural patterns being valuable. Sam's face paled. Neural plasticity, there are rumors in xenobiology circles. Humans supposedly can form new neural pathways faster than any known species. Their brains can adapt to almost anything. She tapped her fingers on the desk. If that's true, it would be incredibly valuable for artificial intelligence development, neural implants, even mind transfer technology. Alan felt a chill, so they want to study humans. Experiment on them. Or worse, Sam said. If they're still angry about that ancient defeat, they might want revenge first, research second. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the discovery pressing down on them. We need to learn more, Sam finally said. The file mentions someone called the Keeper. Do you know who that is? Alan shook his head. No names were given, just that title. Sam turned back to the images, searching. Wait, what's this? She pointed to a small symbol at the bottom of one page. This isn't English. I think it's a map coordinate. She went to her bookshelf and pulled down an old star chart. These are outdated from before the last standardization, but they might help us understand where this coordinate points. Sam spread the chart on her desk and began making calculations on a separate pad. Alan watched as she worked, her fingers moving quickly as she converted the strange symbol into something their modern systems could understand. That's odd, she said after several minutes. This points to a region of empty space. There's nothing there according to any chart I have. Maybe that's the point, Alan suggested. If they removed Earth's star system from all charts, that empty space might be where it actually is. Sam looked up at him, her expression serious. Alan, do you understand what we're talking about? If this file is genuine, we've discovered that the Confederacy has been lying about its history for centuries. And now someone powerful wants to break a treaty that could start a war with a species we know almost nothing about. I know, Alan said. That's why we need to do something. Do what? Go to the authorities? They might be part of the conspiracy? Try to find Earth ourselves? We don't have a ship that could travel that far. Alan thought for a moment. The file is updated regularly. Someone is maintaining it, keeping track of the treaty. We need to find that person. Sam nodded slowly. The Keeper. Yes, they might know how to contact Earth, how to warn them. Sam closed the star chart. This is dangerous, Alan. If we're caught, looking into this, we could face serious consequences. Mind-wiping at minimum, possibly worse, I know, Alan said. But can you live with yourself if you do nothing and later learn that an entire world was attacked because you stayed silent? Sam sighed. No, I couldn't. She stood up. We need to be smart about this. Careful, the archives are monitored. We can't keep accessing that file without someone noticing. I have an idea about that, Alan said. The file is accessed once per cycle, always at the same time. If we can figure out who's doing that, we might find the Keeper. How do we do that? Alan smiled. I have access to the security cameras in the archive sector. We wait until the next scheduled access and see who shows up. Sam looked at Alan with new respect. That might work. She deactivated the privacy field. The next cycle begins in 3 days. Meet me back here the night before. We'll need to plan carefully. As Alan left her office, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He had started this just out of curiosity. Now he was planning to spy on possibly the most important secret in Confederacy history. He only hoped they wouldn't be too late to warn Earth. 3 days later, Alan sat in a small maintenance room near the archives. The space was tight, filled with cleaning equipment and spare parts. A small screen showed feeds from security cameras throughout the archive sector. Sam sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the screen. How much longer? She whispered. Alan checked the time. Access should happen in about 10 minutes if the pattern holds. They had spent the past days preparing. Sam had researched everything she could find about Earth without raising suspicions. There wasn't much, just brief mentions in old exploration, logs, and a few entries in xenobiology texts describing the basic physical form of humans. I still can't believe an entire planet could be hidden, Sam said. The Confederacy maps every star system it finds. Not this one, Alan replied. According to the file, they erased it completely, as if it never existed. They fell silent, watching the screen. The archives were nearly empty at this hour. A few maintenance bots moved through the halls. A single night worker sat at a desk far from the secure servers where the classified file was stored. There, Alan pointed suddenly. A figure had entered the secure area. They wore a plain gray uniform with no markings strange in a society where status and job were always clearly displayed on clothing. The figure moved with purpose, heading directly to a specific terminal. They sat down and began to work. Can you get a closer view? Sam asked. Alan adjusted the camera. The figure's face came into focus. They appeared to be an older male with pale blue skin and silver hair, a member of the Lorian species, known for their long lives and excellent memory. Do you recognize him? Alan asked. Sam shook her head. No, but that uniform. It's not standard for any department I know. They watched as the Lorian accessed the system. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. A moment later, he was done. The entire process took less than 10 seconds. That's it? Sam asked. What did he do? I don't know, Alan said. But I'm going to follow him. Is that safe? Probably not. But it's our only lead. Alan stood and checked the small tracker he had prepared. If he could plant it on the Lorian's clothing, they could follow him later. Be careful, Sam warned. Alan slipped out of the maintenance room and into the corridor. He moved quietly, staying close to the wall. Ahead, he could see the Lorian leaving the secure area. Alan increased his pace. The Lorian turned a corner, heading toward the main exit. Alan followed, trying to look casual. The archives were large, and at this hour mostly empty. His footsteps echoed slightly on the hard floor. The Lorian stopped suddenly. Alan froze, ducking behind a data storage unit. Had he been noticed? The Lorian looked around, then continued walking. Alan let out a breath and followed again. Closer now. At the main exit, Alan made his move. He pretended to trip, bumping into the Lorian. I'm so sorry, Alan said, steadying himself against the older alien. As he did, he pressed the tiny tracker against the gray uniform. The Lorian looked at him with pale yellow eyes. No harm done, he said in a soft voice. You should be more careful, young one. Yes, sir. Sorry again. The Lorian nodded and continued through the exit. Alan waited a moment, then followed at a distance. Outside, he watched as the Lorian boarded a public transport pod. Alan returned to the maintenance room where Sam waited anxiously. Did it work? She asked. Alan checked his personal device. A small dot blinked on the screen, moving away from their location. Yes, we can track him now. They waited until morning, taking turns watching the tracker's signal. The Lorian had traveled to the central government district, entered a building, and remained there. That's the Ministry of Historical Preservation, Sam said, looking at the map. They maintain records of Confederacy history and cultural artifacts. Makes sense, Alan nodded. Someone working there would have the knowledge and access to maintain a secret historical file. They decided to visit the ministry that day. Sam had legitimate reasons to be there. Her research often required access to historical records. Alan would pose as her assistant. The ministry building was tall and made of pale green stone. Inside, officials and researchers moved between departments. Sam approached the reception desk. Professor Samantha Miller, Xenolinguistics Department? I have an appointment to review some language evolution files. The receptionist checked the system. Yes, Professor. You and your assistant can proceed to Level 3, Section B. They took the lift to the 3rd level. Once there, Sam led them past Section B and toward a quieter area of the building. The tracker shows he's on Level 5, Alan whispered, checking his device. That's restricted access, Sam replied. We need a plan. They found a quiet corner to talk. I have an idea, Sam said. Official requests between departments don't get much scrutiny if they look routine. I can create a request for a consultation on an ancient text, specifically asking for a Lorian specialist. Will that work? It might. Lorians are rare in the linguistics field. If he's the only one here, they'll send him. Sam used her academic credentials to submit the request through the ministry system. They waited in a small research room, pretending to study old text. An hour later, the door opened. The Lorian entered, carrying a datapad. Professor Miller? He asked, looking at Sam. Then his gaze shifted to Alan. A flash of recognition crossed his face. You're the young man from the archives, Alan tensed, ready to run. But the Lorian simply closed the door behind him. I wondered how long it would take for someone to notice the file, he said calmly. Though I must say, planting a tracker on me was quite bold. Sam looked at Alan in alarm. Yes, I knew it was there, the Lorian continued. I've been doing this for a very long time. 1. Develops a certain awareness. He sat down across from them. My name is Kelvin. I am what you might call the current keeper. You maintain the file about Earth, Alan said. Kelvin nodded. For the past 70 years, yes. My predecessor did it for 120 before me. Why? Sam asked. Why preserve this secret? Balance, Kelvin replied simply. The treaty with Earth was signed under duress, but it has served its purpose. It has kept peace. Some secrets should remain buried. But now the treaty is in danger. Alan said, the file mentioned a faction in the High Council planning an expedition to Earth. Kelvin's expression darkened. Yes, led by Council member Dren. His grandfather was one of the few who knew the truth and passed it down through his family. Dren has become obsessed with humanity's neural capabilities and with avenging what he sees as a humiliation. Ken. You stop him? Sam asked. Kelvin shook his head. I am just a record keeper. I preserve the truth, but I have no political power. Then we need to warn Earth, Alan said. How? Sam asked. We don't even know where it is. Kelvin was quiet for a moment, studying them. There is a way, he finally said. But helping you would violate my oath of neutrality. I need to know I can trust you. You can, Alan insisted. We'll see. Kelvin stood. The keepers have maintained a contingency plan for generations. If you truly wish to help, meet me tonight at the old observatory on the western edge of the city. Come alone. Tell no one. With that, he left the room, leaving Alan and Sam to wonder if they were walking into a trap or their only chance to prevent a war. The old observatory stood on a hill outside the city. Once it had been used to map the stars, but newer facilities had made it obsolete. Now it sat abandoned, its dome cracked open like an eggshell against the night sky. Alan and Sam approached. Cautiously, the path leading up to the building was overgrown. No lights shone from inside. Are you sure about this? Sam whispered. Alan wasn't sure at all, but he nodded anyway. We've come too far to turn back now. They reached the main entrance. The door was unlocked. Alan pushed it open, wincing at the creaking sound it made. Inside the air was cool and still. Dust covered the floor except for a set of fresh footprints. Leading deeper into the building. They followed the tracks to a circular room under the main dome. Old star viewing equipment sat silent and forgotten. Moonlight streamed through the crack in the dome, casting long shadows. You came, a voice said from the darkness. Kelvin stepped forward into a shaft of moonlight. I wasn't certain you would. We want to help, Alan said. Kelvin studied them for a moment, then nodded. Very well, follow me. He led them to what appeared to be a solid wall. Kelvin placed his hand against it and whispered something. A hidden door slid open, revealing a staircase leading down. The keepers have maintained this place for centuries, Kelvin explained as they descended. Few know of its existence. The staircase led to a small, round room filled with old technology. Star maps covered the walls. In the center stood a device unlike anything Alan had seen before, a mixture of ancient mechanical parts and modern quantum tech. What is this place? Sam asked, looking around in wonder. A listening post, Kelvin said. And occasionally a way to send messages. He approached the central device and began activating it. Lights flickered on and a soft hum filled the room. The treaty with Earth included a provision for emergency contact, Kelvin explained. A quantum entangled communication system, primitive by today's standards, but effective. One part remained here, one was taken to Earth. And it still works. After 300 years? Alan asked in disbelief. The technology was designed to last, and each keeper has maintained it. Kelvin adjusted some controls. However, it can only send text messages and only a limited amount. We must be brief and clear. What should we tell them? Sam asked. The truth. Kelvin said simply. That the treaty is in danger? That an expedition is being planned? Alan stepped forward. How do we know they'll believe us? Or that they'll even understand? 300 years is a long time. Their language might have changed. Kelvin nodded. A valid concern. That's why the message must include a verification code. The humans will know it comes from us. He handed Alan a small data pad. You should write the message. Your discovery of the file makes you part of this now? Alan took the pad, feeling the weight of responsibility. He thought carefully, then began to type, to Earth authorities, treaty violation imminent. Confederacy faction led by Council Member Dren plans expedition to Sol System. Purpose, study of human neural patterns and possible retribution for past defeat. This warning sent by friends within Confederacy. Verification code, Azure Eagle Dawn. He showed it to Kelvin, who nodded approval. Short and clear, the Lorian said. Good. Kelvin took the pad and connected it to the central device. He pressed a series of controls and the machine hummed louder. Lights pulsed along its surface. Message sent, Kelvin said after a moment. Now we wait. If Earth still monitors their end of the system, we should receive a response within a day. And if they don't? Sam asked. Kelvin's expression was grim. Then we must find another way to warn them. Suddenly, an alarm sounded from a small device on Kelvin's belt. His eyes widened in alarm. We've been discovered, he said urgently. Someone has detected the energy signature from the communication device. Who? Alan asked, his heart racing. Security forces, likely under Dren's control. Kelvin moved quickly to a cabinet and pulled out 3 small objects. He handed one to Alan and one to Sam. Take these. They're personal cloaking devices. Old technology, but they'll hide you from standard scanners. What about you? Sam asked, taking the device. I'll remain and delay them. As keeper, I have some diplomatic protection. He pressed a hidden panel on the wall, revealing another passage. This leads to an exit on the far side of the hill. Go now. We can't just leave you, Alan protested. You must, Kelvin insisted. If they capture all of us, there will be no one left to help Earth. He looked at them with intensity. Listen. Carefully. If I don't contact you within 2 days, seek a human named Eric Daniels at the Outer Rim outpost called Haven. A human? Sam said in surprise. How is that possible? There's no time to explain. Remember the name, Eric Daniels, Haven outpost? Kelvin pushed them toward the passage. Go! Alan and Sam activated the cloaking devices. Their bodies shimmered and seemed to fade slightly, not invisible but harder to notice. They entered the passage as sounds of people entering the observatory echoed from above. The tunnel was narrow and dark. They moved as quickly as they dared, feeling their way along rough stone walls. After what seemed like an eternity, they saw a faint light ahead. They emerged from a small opening hidden by bush on the far side of the hill in the distance. They could see vehicles with flashing lights surrounding the observatory. We need to get away from here, Alan said, taking Sam's hand. Can you call for transport without being traced? Sam nodded. I have a secure connection through the university network. She used her personal device to arrange for an automated taxi to pick them up 1/2 kilometer away. They walked, keeping to the shadows. Sam asked, What do we do now? We wait 2 days, Alan replied. If Kelvin doesn't contact us, we find a way to this Haven outpost and look for Eric Daniels. A human, Sam said, still sounding amazed. Living among us all this time. How many more could there be? Alan looked up at the stars, wondering which one might be Earth's sun. I don't know. But I think we're about to find out a lot more about humans than the Confederacy ever wanted us to know. Behind them, lights continued to flash around the observatory. Their journey had just begun, and already they were fugitives. But Alan felt strangely calm. For the first time in his life, he was part of something truly important. They had sent their warning. Now they could only hope Earth would respond in time. 2 days passed with no word from Kelvin. Alan and Sam had hidden in a small rental unit on the edge of the city, paid for with anonymous credits. They took turns watching the news feeds, but there was no mention of any disturbance at the observatory or arrests of government officials. "They're keeping it quiet," Sam said as she checked her device for the 100th time. "If they caught Kelvin, they wouldn't want anyone to know why." Alan nodded grimly. "We need to assume he's been captured. That means we need to find this Eric Daniels. Getting to Haven would not be easy." The Outer Rim outpost was far from the Confederacy's central planets in a region known for lawlessness and questionable trading practices. They would need false identification and a ship willing to take passengers without asking questions. Sam had a contact from her university days, a former student who now worked in transport security. With a significant payment of anonymous credits, they secured 2 sets of false travel documents and passage on a cargo ship headed to the outer systems. The ship was called the Wandering Star, an old vessel that had seen better days. Its captain, a 4-armed Ventaxian named Grell, asked no questions when they boarded with minimal luggage and paid extra for privacy. Their quarters were small, a single room with 2 narrow beds and barely enough space to stand between them. The journey would take 5 days. "What do you think we'll find on Haven?" Sam asked as they sat in their room, feeling the ship rumble as it prepared for departure. "I don't know," Alan admitted, "but a human living openly in Confederacy space? That alone is worth finding." The ship shuddered as it left the planetary atmosphere. Through a small viewport, they watched their world shrink until it was just another dot of light among the stars. The journey passed slowly. They kept to themselves, taking meals in their quarters and avoiding the few other passengers. On the 5th day, the captain announced they were approaching Haven. From orbit, Haven looked unimpressive, a small planetoid with a dome covering its single settlement. As their shuttle descended to the surface, they could see the hodgepodge nature of the place. Buildings of various designs stood packed together along narrow streets. Species from across the galaxy moved about their business. "Where do we start?" "Looking?" Sam wondered as they stepped out into the noisy, crowded main thoroughfare. Alan had been thinking about this. If this Eric Daniels is human, and he's living here openly, people would remember him. Humans are rare enough to be noticed. They began asking in shops and food stalls. Most people ignored them or claimed to know nothing. But at a small repair shop, an old mechanic nodded at the name. "Daniels? Yeah, he's got a place on the east side. Fixes navigation systems, good work, fair prices, keeps to himself mostly." The shop wasn't hard to find once they knew where to look. A simple sign read, "Daniels Navigation Repair," in standard unified script. The door was open, revealing a cluttered workspace filled with ship parts and tools. A man stood with his back to them, working on what appeared to be a navigational computer. He was of average height with graying hair and tanned skin. "Eric Daniels?" Alan called. The man turned. His eyes, a deep brown, widened slightly as he saw them. He looked entirely human, just as the old records had described. No blue skin or extra limbs or other alien features, just a plain human man in his apparent 50s. "Nobody's called me that in a long time," he said, his accent strange to their ears. He wiped his hands on a cloth and studied them. "You're not my usual customers." "Kelvin sent us," Sam said. Eric's expression changed instantly. He moved to the door and closed it, then activated a device on his belt. A faint hum filled the air. "Privacy field," he explained. "Now tell me exactly why Kelvin would send you to me." They explained everything: Alan's discovery of the file, meeting Sam, finding Kelvin, and the warning they had sent to Earth. Eric listened without interrupting, his face growing more serious with each word. When they finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed deeply. "I knew this day might come," he said. "The treaty has held for 300 years. That's longer than most peace agreements in human history." "You're really human," Sam said, unable to hide her fascination. "How is that possible? How long have you been here?" "I was born here," Eric said. "Well, not on Haven specifically. On another Confederacy world. My family has been living among the stars for generations." "But the treaty," Alan began. The treaty prevented the Confederacy from contacting Earth, Eric explained. It didn't stop Earth from sending out observers. My ancestors were part of the first group. Over the centuries, we've maintained a network, watching, listening, making sure the treaty was respected. And reporting back to Earth? Sam asked. Eric nodded. When possible. Communication is difficult across such distances, even with our technology. Did Earth receive our warning? Alan asked. Yes, Eric said. I got confirmation yesterday through our secure channels. They're preparing. Preparing how? Sam asked. The Confederacy has advanced technology, thousands of ships. Eric smiled slightly. Earth isn't the same planet it was 300 years ago. They've been advancing too, just in their own way. He moved to a hidden panel in the wall and opened it, revealing a small communication device. This is a quantum entangled communicator, much more advanced than the one Kelvin used. He activated it, and a holographic message appeared, written in English. Sam translated it aloud. Message received. Diplomatic response initiated. Hold position. Reinforcements incoming. What does that mean? Alan asked. Before Eric could answer, a loud alarm began to sound throughout the settlement. A voice came over the public announcement system. Attention all residents. Unidentified vessel has entered orbit. Size and configuration unknown. All citizens advised to remain calm and stay indoors. Eric looked at them, his expression both worried and somehow satisfied. It means Earth has decided to make its presence known again. They rushed outside, looking up at the dome that protected Haven from the vacuum of space. Through the transparent material, they could see a ship in orbit. It was unlike any Confederacy. Vessel sleek, dark, with lines that suggested both beauty and terrible power. Is that? Sam couldn't finish the question. An Earth ship, Eric confirmed. The first to openly enter Confederacy space in 300 years. As they watched, a message began broadcasting on all frequencies in perfect standard unified script to the Galactic Confederacy High Council. We have received information that certain parties intend to violate the treaty between our peoples. We request an immediate meeting to discuss this matter. Diplomatic representatives are en route to your central world. We expect them to be received with all courtesy. The treaty has served both our peoples well. We hope that wisdom prevails and it continues to do so. Eric turned to Alan and Sam. You did it. You warned them in time. What happens now? Alan asked. Now, Eric said, looking up at the Earthship, the Confederacy learns that keeping secrets has consequences. And perhaps both our peoples finally learn to talk to each other as equals. Sam looked at the ship with wonder in her eyes. All this time, they were out there, watching, waiting. Humans are patient when they need to be, Eric said, and very protective of their home. As they stood there, another announcement came over the settlement speakers. Message from Confederacy High Council, emergency session convened, all military. Action suspended pending diplomatic talks. Alan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had prevented a war. The classified file had served its purpose one last time. The most classified file in the galactic network was written in English, he said quietly. And now everyone will know why. Above them, the Earthship maintained its position, a silent reminder that some secrets cannot stay hidden forever.